Hello and welcome to today's KDP University's At Home with Kennedy Ryan. I'm Trisha, and for the past 5 years, I've moved around Amazon Books team, learning the business so I can share it with authors. Prior to coming to Amazon, I worked as a graphic artist, project manager, and educator. I'm privileged to work on the KDP University team, helping authors use the KDP website to make the most of their author journey. But we're here to talk to Kennedy. Rita Award winner, USA Today and Amazon Top 12 bestseller, Kennedy Ryan writes to empower women from all walks of life, placing them at the center of each captivating romance novel and in charge of their own destinies. Ryan and her books were featured in Glamour, Cosmopolitan, Time, and other magazines. Co-founder of Lift for Autism, she's appeared on several media outlets as an advocate for families affected by autism. Ryan believes self-publishing is a powerful means for authors from marginalized communities to publish their work and find their audience. Wife to her lifetime lover and mother of an extraordinary son. Welcome, Kennedy.
Okay, there we go.
There.
I'm here.
Sometimes it takes a minute.
Yes.
Well, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, Trisha. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat today. Hey, everybody.
Good. Yep, we've got lots of people coming in, so we'll give it just a second. But as we get started, I always love to hear the backstory. And we heard a little bit about the video. Was it shocking to see yourself on that video? I have to ask.
Which video?
The one we just played. Did you not see it? Getting ready?
Oh, I did. Oh, no, I didn't see the video.
Sorry, loophole. Oh, no. Okay.
I didn't see the video. I don't think I would have been shocked, but I did not see the video. Obviously, very technically challenged this morning. I saw I saw the slide presentation, but I didn't see a video, so I missed it.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, well, you're on there. It was the video, the marketing video that you did a couple of years ago for us.
Oh, that one. Oh, that was a great experience. Yeah, I mean, I have done a lot of television stuff in the past, so it doesn't shock me, but it's always fun.
Good. All right, so let's start out by talking a little bit about how you got started. We heard from the video that you're an autism advocate, and it sounds to me like that's kind of where you got your start. Is that correct?
You mean as far as writing?
It is. I am.
My background is journalism, and so I first started writing more like technical writing, interviews, editorials, things like that. My first job, professional job as a writer, was when I was 17 years old, and our city paper was looking for a new editorial writer. And I conveniently, back in those days, I guess they didn't really check, but I conveniently left out the fact that I was only 17, and I got the job. So I started writing editorials for our city paper, and that was my senior year in high school. And I think I got maybe like $10. It's like way back. But I was like, oh, I'm a paid writer, And then when I got to college, I went to journalism school, and so I focused on public relations writing, technical writing, things like that. And then I started freelancing, doing lots of interviews and stuff like that. The way a lot of my writing was autism writing. My son was diagnosed with autism now 18 years ago. I'm telling my age.
Oh, wow.
Which I don't mind telling my age. But he was 2 years old, and I was working a full-time job, like with a nonprofit. And my son was diagnosed with autism, and I'm one of these people who like dives right in, deep in. And so I really dove into the autism community, being an active part of the autism community. That community really embraced my family and helped us navigate those early stages of diagnosis and intervention. And for me, I'm kind of like an entrepreneur at heart. I ended up starting a nonprofit for families who have children with autism. And I started that and ran it for about 12 years. I still do a lot with autism, but during that time, I started writing around autism. So I started writing for Mom's Magazine and Chicken Soup for the Soul, and places like that around autism and autism advocacy. And I never really thought I would, maybe never thought I'd write a novel. Like I thought I would write about my experience as a mom or something that was nonfiction. But what happened was, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this as self-published authors, I had a full-time job. I started a foundation. I was running that foundation. And then, and I was a special needs mom, and I had nothing for myself, and I don't know if you've ever been in that place where it feels like everybody is getting parts of you and there's nothing left for you. And that's really how I was feeling. And I grew up loving romance, like loving romance. And it was my escape. And I'm the classic kid who got handed her first like Kathleen Woodowitz novel in the 8th grade and was like, whoa, what is this? Had to hide it from my mom, hoarded books.
Right.
So I'm that classic voracious romance reader. And for a lot of us, somewhere around college, people start telling us, no, you need to read the serious books. Like you need to read the real books, the real literature. And that, I don't know that that's what happened to me. I think I just got really busy and I stopped reading romance for a long time. And after my son was diagnosed and I was running the foundation, I was working a full-time job, I just realized I have nothing that's bringing just me joy, something that's just for myself. And I started reading romance again. And it was so refreshing to step back into those guaranteed happily ever afters. And, I started thinking, I am a writer. I've been a writer for a really long time and I love romance. I should try this, And I wrote a behemoth of a book. I mean, nobody would publish this. And I let my husband read it. You always let your family read it. And I let my husband read it. I let my sister read it. They're like, oh, this is so good. And your family always thinks your stuff is so good. And I knew that's not how you publish. That's not how you determine if something's actually good, is whether the man you sleep with every night thinks so. He may have ulterior motives.
Right, exactly. A little support there, yep.
Right. And so I joined my local RWA chapter here in Atlanta, which was crucial for me at that time. I knew absolutely nothing. And there were so many, it was obviously mostly women because romance is mostly women. And the Georgia chapter was incredibly vibrant and incredibly helpful. And at that point, self-publishing was just ramping up. And I thought the only way you can publish is to publish traditionally. That's that's all I really knew. And there was this huge group of women who were self-publishing successfully and making a living self-publishing. And for me, if you've ever been to like RWA or some of these like conferences, they will invite agents and editors in. And so friends, I had written, again, a behemoth of a book. It was literally 200,000 words. And for romance, that's like 3 romance novels, maybe 4 romance novels. Right, it's like 4 romance novels. And I do write long, but wow. So it was 200,000 words. I didn't know that's not right. I didn't know you don't do that. And God bless her. An agent, LaToya Smith, who was with Forever and Hachette at the time, was one of the agents. And my friend said, just do it as a dry run, like just to get practice, pitch. And you sit down with them and you pitch. And I was like, what is pitching? They were like, okay, just tell her about your book. Nothing will happen, but it's okay. It's just practice. And so they said, but if something does happen, she'll say thanks, but no thanks, or nice meeting you. She'll ask for a partial, which means she's kind of interested. She wants to read about 30 pages of it, or she's really interested and she'll ask for a full. And so I sit down and I pitch my 200,000 word novel, which I'm sure I didn't do a good job of it at all. And at the end of our time, she said, could you send me the full? And I was like, the full? Did you say the full? Because I thought they said that when they say send me the full, they really are interested. She goes, yeah, send me the full. And I sent her the full manuscript. And 2 weeks later, maybe 4 weeks later, something like that, she was like, we want this. It's very long, so we're going to have to break it into 2 books, which is what we did. And that's how I got my start. I started traditionally published, and it was it was not a bad experience. It was a great experience. I realized at being so exposed to people who were self-publishing that was something that, I started the foundation for my family, autism family. I have a grid inside of me that starts things, that's interested in starting things, control, and helping. And so that grid that kind of runs through me kicked in. And I was like, what would this look like if I published for myself? And and so I did. And that was kind of a huge boost for my career and really allowed me to reach a lot of new readers. So that's probably a long answer. I don't even remember what your initial question was, but I hope I answered it.
You did. But let's go back and unpack some of that. That was a lot of really great information.
Okay.
I know that some of our authors, as they're just getting started, they are working full time. They're doing other things. They have families that they need to make sure that they're nurturing. And how do you find the time? I mean, working full time, running a nonprofit, taking care of a special needs child. Wait a minute, just even one of those is a full-time job.
Right.
So how do you make sure that you're finding that time and setting that time aside for writing?
Right. I don't work another full-time job now. I did at the time. And that's an interesting story. We'll have to talk about the pact my husband and I made, the self-publishing pact my husband and I made when we moved to San Diego and I was making no money before I self-published. But at the time, yeah, I was running a foundation, and we were doing, it was like doing real things. We were getting therapy for families, and we were doing Christmas programs for single parents, and we were, raising money. We were doing a lot in the community and very active. And then I had a very demanding job that was actually probably about 50 hours a week. Not,
oh, wow.
It was very demanding. And I started the story that started coming to me, it wouldn't leave me alone. And I think that's a part of it for me, is I have to feel compelled. And that's still the case now. And so we make time for the things that are important to us. And I know that sounds really offhand, speaking from where I am now, where I'm not working full time, but at that time, I had no time. And my son's demands were great. I would wake up at probably 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning to write. Before, I would go to work, and then my son would have therapy after school, and there would be a lot going on. Once my son was asleep and my husband was satisfied, done, whatever, I've checked him off as a box for the day.
Right.
Then I would get back to writing, So I would write very, very early, and then I would write late at night. I didn't sleep very much during that time of my life, and I don't recommend it. I still don't sleep enough. But and I also had a partner who was very supportive, and I don't take that for granted. Where he also was like, how can I help? What do you need? And I don't take that for granted, because I think that was a huge help. But creating space, we have space in our lives. I didn't watch very much television, at that time. And that is kind of like your unplug, is like you come home, you watch television. That for a space of maybe a year or so, there was so much discipline that it took to get it done. And the things that I would typically do, I didn't get to do as much, because all of that, extra time was devoted to writing. And yeah. So
how did you keep from getting burnt out on it? I think that some authors they'll start that, and then, you talked about it. It took a year before, for you writing, before you had the manuscript. So how do you keep motivated during that year to keep going?
Honestly, I think that a big part of it in getting the manuscript ready was joining RWA. And it may not be RWA, it may be something else, but I think the point is community. That I found a group of like-minded writers who were serious about it and who didn't see it. They weren't hobbyists. You know, they saw this as something they wanted to do for a living. And most of them were also working a full-time job. So we commiserated, you know, about how little time we had. And we also held each other accountable, which I think is a huge part of it now. That helps me even now. You know, I have a group of writers I Zoom with, and we will mute and write for 50 minutes, and then we'll unmute and chat and talk about how we did for 10 minutes, and then we'll go back in. I'm much more productive in the context of community. That's because of the camaraderie, the accountability, and those things were very helpful to me as I was, you know, developing my first book. That kind of encouragement. And I think for me, that's a really big part of succeeding now, however you define succeeding. Like for me, being in community with other authors is a big part of that. It's also how you learn, you know, because you go to these like seminars and we watch, you know, we take classes and things like that. But when you're self-publishing, things are changing minute by minute. The terrain is shifting under your feet. And being plugged into community with authors who are paying attention to those trends and to what's happening, you know, that's so valuable. So I think community was a big part of it. And I mean, and you say, how did you do it without burning out? I didn't. You know, I did burn out. I did. I was living probably depressed at the time and didn't realize it, you know? And I think that was a good thing for me. Not that it was a good thing for me to experience early in my career, and not that I don't ever experience it anymore, but now I know what it looks like. You know, I know what it looks like when I hit a wall and I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not creating. I know what that feels like because I lived it then, and I've lived it several times along my journey. I am what I call a type A minus. You know, so we're the ones who, you know, I don't like the word workaholic, but that is, you know, I'm a classic workaholic. I'm the kind, because, you know, when I describe what my life looked like then, it's like, wow, your plate was so full. So someone who had more sense than me would say I should clear some of these things from my plate. And I'm the kind of person who goes, oh, I need a bigger plate, you know, or hand me another plate. You know, I'm never thinking I shouldn't do all these things. I'm thinking, oh, I need a plate because I could do all of this. I'm high capacity, you know, and it's really not acknowledging your own limits, your own limitations. And I'm trying to get better about that. Massages and, you know, taking even a little time for yourself. We have to do that. And there's a book called Burnout. I can't remember who wrote it, but I was reading that last year, and that was very helpful. Again, I can't remember who wrote it. Of course I can. But
that's okay. I think that you've hit on a lot of key things. And one thing that we hear over and over is that sense of community and finding that community that helps support you, nurture you, and you can learn from. Now, this past year has limited our ability to find those communities. It's been a significant challenge. How have you dealt with that?
I think that probably in just about every interview I've had conversation I've had over the last year, this has come up, you know, because I don't know that I dealt with it well. For me, I mentioned that my son has autism. That has posed some extraordinary challenges. He does not do remote learning well, and so he hasn't been in school, and we've had to hire tutors to come. He's also immune compromised, and so we don't go out very much. He's not out in the community very much, which is very difficult for him and very difficult for us. All of that started happening last year. Was awful, you know, like for everybody, but for our family personally, my identity was stolen. We moved in the middle of the pandemic, like literally the day we moved from North Carolina back to Atlanta, the mayor shut the city down. So where my son was going to school, that couldn't happen. I was in the middle of writing. I was under deadline, and it was awful. It was being trapped in the house with my husband and my son, and not being able to write. I like to go out to write. I like to, drop my son. I had a routine. And I think that was the first thing I noticed, was that routine was so significant for me. And at first I didn't realize why I was struggling. I had a routine where I would drop my son off at his school, and I would listen to an audiobook during my commute, that I enjoyed. Right. And then I would go to a cafe or whatever, and then I would write, and then I would pick my son up from school. I had these things built into my life, and all of a sudden, all of those routines and all of the predictability that I needed disappeared. I did not do a good job managing that. And I actually kind of hit one of those walls, and I had a huge deadline, and I just couldn't, it was not going anywhere. And it was actually with a small press and not self-publishing. So I really didn't have the flexibility to say, I'm going to move this, I'm going to say, no, because if I'm self-publishing, I can say, ooh, I'm not going to make this deadline. I can move it. I didn't have that luxury. It was due. And, I didn't do well with it. I mean, the book did well. I got it out, but after I cranked that book out, I just crashed. And we're in a situation where we have one office that we share. And so my husband also couldn't go to work. So he's on Zoom calls all the time. And we can't both be on Zoom calls. And then my son would be with his tutor in his space, and there was nowhere for me to go. So I was like, I'll work in the bedroom. I'll work from my bed. And after a few months, my husband was like, do you realize that you aren't leaving the bed very much? And I was like, am I not? He goes, no, you're not. Like, you're in bed a lot. And I realized that it was all of it was disguising kind of this low hum of depression. Because that, you stay in bed, there are all of these things. And the pandemic really disguised a lot of those things. And it took me longer to recognize, oh, I know what this is. I also... I am an advocate of therapy. I'm like, get you some therapy, honey. And I had been in therapy before. With all of our moves, I hadn't gotten back into therapy. And I think most people will probably benefit from therapy, but I am a long-term caregiver, meaning our son is with us for life. And he's a blessing, but it's a long haul. It's not like our finish line is not college. Our finish line is not even when we die. It's like you have to think 20 years beyond. And when you're living with that day in, day out, managing that and a career and everything else, you really have to pay attention to your own mental health, because you can't be there for the people who need you if you are not there for yourself. So I got back into therapy. And I really realized to get to your question, how much I had isolated myself. And so I did start engaging with the Zoom calls, with other authors. I'm in several author groups. I started engaging more. And then we started doing cocktails on Zoom, things like that, really just kind of reminded me, you're not in this by yourself. So that, I don't know if that answered your question, but
it does. And I think that one of the things, and we talked about this off camera earlier, is that you stopped writing for a bit this year, but you still continued to move your business forward. Can you talk a little bit about what you did to move your business forward, even though you weren't writing and releasing new content the same way?
Right. And this is the beauty of self-publishing. This gets to the beauty of controlling your intellectual property and owning your work. Like I said, I had this low hum of depression, and I don't know that I was at a place where I was having to do, in the middle of that, I was having to do a lot of promo for my book. And it was amazing because the book was an instant USA Today bestseller, and it sold well, and the book, and it's done better than anything I've ever written. And I am amazed, because I'm like, how did this happen from I was writing it from purgatory. So how did
Right.
I produce it? And I don't know. But after I was having to do a lot of promo for it. And so I was on Instagram live all the time. And I was, and it's not that that wasn't legitimate excitement, but it's like you can be on only for so long. And then you're like, okay, your body, your mind, your brain, your soul is like, we're going to put a stop to this. You're going to have to pay attention to us. All of this, you're going to have to pay attention to it. And I crashed really hard. And only my closest friends knew how much I was struggling. My husband knew how much I was struggling. And I could not write. I am not a writing machine. First of all, we should note, I'm not a writing machine. A lot of my friends will write like 4 and 6 books a year. That will never happen. My books are long, even if they're not 200,000 words anymore, but my books are an average 120 to 130,000 words. So there's still like a good almost 2 romance novels in one, and it takes me a long time to write. If I get 2 books out a year, I'm happy. 2 books and maybe a novella or a short story, I'm happy. So after it was Queen Move that I had that I wrote, and it was an instant USA Today bestseller, and I was so happy about it, and I poured everything into that release, and I had nothing left. And so then I was like, okay, I need to write another book. And I couldn't. Like I got to the place where I just couldn't write. I need to feel compelled. I need to feel motivated. I'm not someone who can just sit down and go, here's the plot points, let's knock it out. I have to feel compelled. And if you're familiar with Becca Syme and her Write Better Faster and strengths finders for writers, I've taken Write Better Faster, but there's a strengths finder component. My number one strength is something, and she and I talked, and she was like, this is not a strength that I usually see in writers, like one of their top strengths. Mine is belief. My number one strength is belief. And if you read my books, you see that, because there's always some kind of conviction. Activism is something that runs through my books. So it makes sense. And when I didn't have that as like a motivating force, I had nothing to say. But I still needed to make money and I still needed to support my family. And so this is the beauty of self-publishing. I had a popular series. I mean, it's 3 years old now. And I created, it's my grip series, probably my like fan favorite series. Long Shot is probably my best-selling book, but the grip series is like this fan favorite, like kind of like people get tattoos and, it's like they eat things and, it's just like, it's one of those kind of like, what is it that makes people do this? And they do it.
Right.
So I took that series, which I knew was really popular among my readers, and I did a box set. First of all, I did all new covers. So I completely rebranded it. It's 3 books, did all new covers, did a box set, and then also made it feel really, really special for my readers. I did one of those boxes. So I did a grip box. And it was very specialized and it was very curated. There's a poem from the book that is actually serves as wedding vows in the 3rd book. I took that poem and made prints of it, like on this velvety paper that you can mount. And I asked my readers for their favorite quotes. And then I took, their top quotes and put them on, these nice mugs, and not even mugs. I have one somewhere. Totes, it's basically like all of your favorite things I'm going to put in this box. So the box really generated a lot of attention for the rebranding. And there was a real synergy between what was going on with this box I was creating and engaging readers, and then the new branding, the new covers, and the box set. And then I also asked the narrator, I asked him to do something special, like bonus audio that would only be available in the box set. So and then I also wrote 2 short stories. It's well, one of them had been written and it was somewhere else, and I'd never done anything with it. It was in the Australia anthology that not the Australia anthology, the Cocktails anthology that Penny Reed organized a few years ago. I had done a short story for that, and I'd never really done anything with it, and it was for this couple. And so I added that in the box set, and then I ground out somehow another short story that kind of like took their lives a little bit further. So it's like you get the box set with the new covers, you get 2 new short stories, and then I asked my narrator, my male narrator, Jacoby Diem, who is amazing, shout out to Jacoby, to record the vows, because in the audio, this is getting into the weeds a little, in the audiobook, those vows are from the heroine's perspective. So when you listen to the audiobook, it's the hero's vows, but it's being said by the female narrator. And so I asked him to record those vows, which they never heard. And he did that as bonus audio. And so people were like, bonus audio. And it was the prints, like the prints that I had made that were the vows. So there's all of these, there's all of this continuity. The prints that I had made, he also, did the vows for as bonus audio. And it ended up being, this is 3-year-old content. It sold more than everything else last year. Even my new, Queen Move is harder to measure because it's through a small press, but it was my highest selling anything last year. And it was a 3, and it also got ranked higher. I don't really pay attention to rank anymore, but it was the highest ranked thing I had ever done. A 3-year-old content box set got to like number 12 in the whole Amazon store. And I think the highest that I ever gotten before was 15 or 20 or something like that. Not that rank matters as much as it used to, but a 3-year-old content in a box set to get to number 12 in the whole Amazon store and to be my highest selling content last year. I knew these things, but it really showed me when you are a self-published author, when you own your content, the power lies with you, the control lies with you. And I don't say this as I'm a hybrid author. I just signed a great deal with a great publisher. I have, I started out trad. So I am someone who is constantly looking for how many baskets are there? That's where my eggs are going to go. My eggs are going to go in your basket, my basket, like all the baskets, because I want as many streams of revenue, and I want to, and their readers cluster. There is some overlap, but there is an ecosystem of readers who are traditional. There's an ecosystem of readers who primarily read indie. I want all of you, so my strategy is like a cross strategy. And so I'm not someone who says I'll only ever self-publish, but I understand the power of owning your own content, because when you're in a situation like that, you can run a book bub, which I ended up doing last year also for Long Shot. I ran book bubs for old content because I wasn't writing anything new. I rebranded, which was very important for me. Again, taking 3-year-old content and repurposing it and representing it so that it could be reinvigorated and make me new money. So, that's the beauty of owning your content, because you have promotional control, you have branding control. I went back through and I re-edited all 3 of those books, for the Grip series. I re-edited those books. I reached out to my looking for partnerships. Not being afraid, I reached out to my audio because I had sold the audio. Now I do my own audio for the most part. I produce my own audio. I had sold the audio, and I reached out to my audio producer, and I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing, this fun thing with the box, and I'm doing new covers. And they were like, send us the new covers. So the branding was consistent. They put up the new covers, and they sent me codes, for my boxes so that I could give away free audiobooks. You never know until you ask, and I'm the queen of asking. I am the queen of what's possible. We're going for it. And if we get told no, that's okay. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
you did. You did, because we were talking.
Is that promotional control editorial control, branding control. Those are the things that served me. They kept me afloat last year. I didn't write from, this will sound crazy to writers. I finished Queen Move, I think, in March, and I did not write anything else other than that short story until this year. So I went about 9 months without writing really anything. And I know that sounds, because people are like, write every day, button your chair. First of all, I'm not that kind of writer. I don't write every day. And I take off. My books exhaust me. You know, I wrote, and that goes back to me. I'm learning to take better care of myself. When I wrote my book, Long Shot, I literally had bald spots when I finished that book.
No.
It was, I took months off after Long Shot. I take a lot of time off between my books, honestly. And so because of that, because I know, one of my favorite writers is Sierra Simone, and she and I are actually co-writing something this year, but we have very similar approaches, and the things that motivate us are very similar. So neither one of us end up writing a lot of books. You know, like she's one of those two, is like, if I get 2 books out, you know, I'm good. But we talk all the time about how just because you only you're the girl who only writes 2 books doesn't mean you can't make as much money as somebody who writes 3 or 4. You know, it's all in how you are using your content and how you are, you know, I try to do other things, foreign deals, you know, now I'm interested in even doing some of my own translations. I can do that because the content is mine. I could sell it to somebody. I sold, you know, my Hoop series will be coming out in German soon, but also I have these other things that I may do translations for myself. You know, I sold a few books to audio producers, but then I've also done my own, you know, I've done my own audio, and I've seen a lot of success with doing my own audio. So we have options.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You're talking about a couple different things, either managing, you know, the foreign rights or selling them to someone else. Can you talk about how you make that decision? What drives that decision?
You know, for me, I had not really thought about doing my own translations, and I haven't done them yet. But again, I talked about being in community and making sure that you have a nucleus of very smart authors who are like-minded, and I am in a community of those. And also, I think this is kind of a shout out for Sky Warren's conference, RAM. At RAM last year, there was a great presentation. I can't remember who did it, but a great presentation, because I wasn't actually there, unfortunately, but I heard about it and all my friends are telling me about it. There was a great presentation about foreign translations and doing it yourself. And that author, Theodore Taylor, maybe, was talking about how she kind of hit the same, you know, wall where she wasn't producing a lot of new content, and she took her books and started doing her own translations, and it kept her afloat. Do you know what I mean? Like, she wasn't writing new content either, but you look at what's in your hand. What do I have that I can use? And for me, I was very interested in getting into the German market because it's huge, you know, probably the most fruitful, vibrant foreign market is the German market. And I was not in the German market. And honestly, I'm going to speak to being a Black author for a second, because what we have been told is that, and it's the same thing that Black filmmakers are told, is that Black stories who feature Black characters don't travel well. Meaning you might be able to piece, and these are the lies they tell us. You know, they tell us that our stories are not worth as much. They tell us that there's not an audience for what we do. They tell us that, you know, they won't be able to sell it. And then, you know, we defy those things. I am determined to defy those lies. And so they say things like, you know, stories that feature Black and brown people, they don't sell as well in foreign markets. And that actually might be true, but I refuse. I don't know. But I don't allow someone else's idea of who I am and what I can do to define my results. And so I had actually really wanted to be in the German market for years, and no one was interested, honestly. And I was like, hold up. why can't I be in Germany? Because I have Black people on my covers, because I'm writing marginalized characters. Is that what it is? And so I was having a really hard time breaking into Germany. Brazil, France, Italy, all of those places had come like, oh, we want to publish your stuff, which was amazing and is exceptional. And I don't take it for granted. But so I had a German publisher. I actually had a friend, Marie Force, introduced me to her German publisher. And when she introduced me to her German publisher, that's how that happened. But then I heard about translations, and this nucleus of authors were all like, we're doing it. You know, we're finding our own translators. We're making more money using our own translators. So that's kind of a next step for me. Not that I won't ever sell it. And I just signed a great trad deal, and I'll probably sell, some foreign rights and not translate those myself. But there are things that I will. You know, it's like I want options. I want options, and some avenues fit certain books better than others. And that's the power. That's the power. You know, is power lies with you as the artist, as creator.
So with the self-publishing, different than traditional publishing, you're in charge of marketing. And I think that you called out how you rebranded and you were able to release something very creatively to bring your backlist back up. Right. So what do you do for a new release when you indie publish a new book? Kind of walk us through how you market that.
I think it looks a little bit different for each one. I do work with a PR firm, and that's mainly bloggers, but I don't, and I so appreciate bloggers and all that they do, and that's a great part of spreading the word. I also use ads. I think that ads are a big part of my strategy. Because the algorithms are changing so much, that might be less this time. I don't know, but I lean hard on Facebook ads, Amazon ads, but also I think one of the biggest keys in marketing that a lot of people miss is your cover. Like, you have got to have an amazing cover. And for me, I'm not a cover person, meaning I don't read books based on covers. I'm a very fastidious reader. I will admit that. I'll start reading something and like, this is not for me. It's not keeping my interest, whatever. And I'll put the book down. I don't care if the cover is amazing. I am a sample reader. I'm like, let me sample this. I want to know if the writing is something and I'm picky. So I'm not a cover buyer, but many, many, many readers are. And so I understand the power of a great cover. And it's interesting because I'll use the Hoop series as an example. I recognized that there was a certain trend as far as covers were concerned that were doing well. And, you look at the top 100 or whatever, you look at books that are in your genre that are performing well, look at their covers, comp those covers and like, okay, if, that is a separate, first of all, I'll say that is a completely separate hat and a completely separate process from how I write a book. Because when I write a book, I don't think about those things. Belief, again, going back to my strengths finders, belief is number one for me. So story comes first, and story is driven by passion and conviction and belief. And so I write that I write the story that is speaking to me and that I feel like is going to say what I need to say right now. And then after I've done that and not compromised on that, I take that hat off, that creative hat, and then I put on my marketing hat because I'm a businesswoman. I'm a maker first. I'm a creator and a creative first. I do that. I take that hat off, and now I'm a businesswoman. And so I need to figure out, how do I sell this? Because if what I'm writing, I'm so passionate and convicted about, then I want as many people to read it as possible. I want to reach people with it. And so I set that aside. And then the first thing I'm thinking about is the cover. And I am looking, and at that point, trends for me don't dictate what I write, because I honestly don't care what anybody else writes. I really don't. I don't compare myself to other people.
Right.
I'm not you know what I mean? I'm not looking like,
Yeah.
ooh, Step Brothers are so hot right now, or ooh, she wrote this, I should write this. I don't care what you write. Write what you write. I'm gonna write what I write. And then I'm like, oh, but let me see what other people are doing as far as marketing, as far as trends. And I tap into that for covers. And a lot of people will say to me, like, if you read my Hoop series, it's very much, my writing is very much romance with very, very strong elements of women's fiction. And a lot of people are like, Kennedy, do you even write romance? I think it's women's fiction. It's both, there's a happily ever after, but especially the Hoop series, the women are really at the center of every story. And there are guys on the cover, beautiful men on the cover. And so a lot of people were like, why did you put these gorgeous men on the cover when the story is really about the women? And it's totally marketing. Like, it's completely marketing. That doesn't mean that like my last book, Queen Move, I had a beautiful woman on the cover. I'm looking at the marketing for that particular series in that particular space of time. And then I go and I have special edition covers with beautiful women on them for the Hoop series, and I think it also, you have to look at all the factors. Are you in KU? Are you wide? Like, those audiences, there are differences in how those audiences sometimes respond to certain covers. So Hoop series launched in Kindle Unlimited. There was a very specific market I was looking at and how that market was responding to covers when I did those. So, that's just an example. So I do work with a PR firm, but again, that's mostly bloggers. I do have an ad strategy. I do use social media, giveaways. I don't go on Goodreads much to read reviews, but I use Goodreads. I have a great promotion team. They're my, they read I give them arcs of my book. They read early and they shout for me, and they shout on Goodreads. I shout on Goodreads. I do Goodreads giveaways. On Goodreads, you can set up an event that alerts everyone who's following you. I do that. With Goodreads, and people are like, don't stay off Goodreads. Goodreads is readers. So for my emotional health, I'm not necessarily reading the reviews on Goodreads, but I'm doing their giveaways. I am, doing their events. I have a Goodreads group. Those, not just the one thing. And obviously my newsletter, my newsletter is my single most vital marketing and engaging element. Like, that's the piece that I would trade for anything, because I know I have a very vibrant, active, growing reader group on Facebook. I have a lot of followers, or for me, a lot of followers on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all those things. Twitter can get taken down, Instagram can get taken down. Like, I have known authors who have had their Facebook group shut down. My newsletter, my mailing list is mine. And so I invest in it. One of the things I do, and this is very proactive when you're talking about what am I doing for a new release, this is something I'm just doing all the time, so that I also have the text. I do easy text. I think it's easy text, where you send your text alerts when a new release is out. One of these things is the difference maker. It's the layers of all of them. And I'm constantly like reverse engineering the release to look at, okay, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? When should this happen? But my newsletter, one of the things I've started doing I've done this for the last 3 years, and I have almost tripled the size of my newsletter in maybe 2 years, using bonus epilogues. And this is not for everybody, but I do bonus epilogues of my, like, when you finish a book, and you have your happily ever after. But if I did my job, you want more of these characters. And so I have a link that says, hey, do you want more? Do you want to see more from these, from these characters? And people are like, sure. I love these guys. And you join my mailing list to get a bonus epilogue. And when I write a bonus epilogue, it's not just like a couple of paragraphs. It is literally 2 chapters. It's usually about 10,000 words from another 2 chapters, each chapter from each character's point of view. So it's substantive, but the thing that I like about it is you're building your newsletter with invested readers. Sometimes we build newsletters with giveaways. There's no problem with that. Like, that's great, sure. But a lot of times those people, all they want is the gift card, all they want is the free book, you know, all they want is that thing. And as soon as they get it, then they unsubscribe and they mark you as spam, and then it affects your open rates. And then you're like, all these subscribers I got, where I call them empty calorie subscribers. When you build your newsletter, this is for me. Anything I say is for me. I'm not saying it's for anybody else. If you're asking what I do, this is what I do.
Right.
This is how I've tripled my newsletter in like 2 years. Is those are people who are invested in what I do. You know, I write books. They like my writing. Right. They are the ones who stick around. And when they join my mailing list around content, around something that is what I really want, that's where I want my relationship with them based on, is around the content and other stuff. Those tend to be more sticky subscribers. And so that's something, it is an investment of your time, writing another 10,000 words. And again, I know people who do it, who they don't do what I do, because I'm crazy. Obviously, I write long books, I write crazy. Everybody, I mean, there are people who just do like a scene, you know, and it's just like, oh, look, it's a little extra. It's 2,000 words. So don't listen to me talking about how I do 10,000 words and I do 2 chapters and I do all of this and think, well, I just don't want to do that. It's not looking at exactly what someone else is doing, but it's gleaning what's the thing behind that, and how is it transferable for me? You know, a lot of times we're trying to mimic other people, and that's never successful for me. But when I figure out what is the thing behind what they're doing and how could I use that, how does that translate to my brand? How does that translate to my worldview and my belief system? How does that translate to, you know, what I've created, and how can I use that? I call it eating the meat and spitting out the bones. I am constantly eating meat and spitting out bones, because there are things that won't work. And that's fine, but there may be something that's of value. So, right.
And I think that you're spot on when you're talking about the fact that you need to do what's good for your audience. For you, that's the longer content, because you write longer content. But for other people who write shorter content, it's not going to work for their audience.
Right. And I think that's the key, is when I said I'm not mimicking anyone, I can look at somebody who writes 6 books a year and they write rom-coms. I don't do that. Like, anybody who reads my book, they know I don't write a rom-com. You know, my books are emotional and heart-wrenching, and they lean much more into women's fiction, even though they're still romance. So I'm not going to look at that and say, oh, okay, well, I should write a rom-com, or even I should do my cover the way she did the cover. That's not the point. There are other things that I could look at in that successful brand and that successful author who's killing it, and analyze, what is she doing? That's amazing. Okay, that's not for me. I don't do that. And that's not going to fit for my brand. But, ooh, look at this thing that she's doing. Oh, okay. I love this idea of the longer pre-order. I'm going to try that. You know, like, it is not, I think a lot of times too, when we are talking about what we do, sometimes people see, oh, well, you're saying that's the way it has to be done, or you're somehow condemning any other way someone else does it. What we have to be is flexible. What we have to be is agile and malleable and smart enough to understand our brand and our audience and how to reach those particular people. And when you make those decisions, there are some readers you are automatically eliminating. Like, there are some people who don't like angsty romance. There are some people who don't like to cry. If you don't like to cry, my book's probably not for you. I'm not going to say, well, I need to write books that don't make people cry. No, I'm going to be true to myself. What I'm not going to do is pretend to be someone else to preserve a sale when I could get a sale from people who like what I do. You know, I am not a chameleon. I am not someone who changes based on trends, you know, who changes the fundamentals of who I am and what I do and what I believe based on what other people tell me. I think the balance of that is listening. Not being so in that space where you don't listen. This is one of my favorite stories from my whole career. I'll tell it fast. Talking about Goodreads. When I wrote my first book, like, it was my debut novel, and there was a 3-star review, which some people probably think 3-star review is great. I don't necessarily process a 3-star review as great. It's fine, but I don't think of it as great. And so I read this 3-star review and I was like, she is so spot on. Like I was like, this is very constructive. And I really wish that I had her as a beta reader. And so I reached out to her and I was like, hi, I saw your review. And she's like, because she's thinking, oh my gosh, you saw my review. You're an author and I'm not saying creep people out at all, but I did reach out to her on Goodreads and I was like, I saw your review and I really felt like all the points you made were so great. And I really wish I had had that perspective going into writing the book. Would you be interested in being a beta reader for me? And she's like, you do know I gave you a 3-star review and you know that I had all these things that I thought. I was like, exactly, that's why we're talking, because I really thought you were so constructive in what you said. And that was 7 years ago. She has beta read every book for me ever since. Do you know what I mean? You have to have a thick skin, open ears, because when people give me bad reviews, it does not wreck my day, because there's somebody who liked it and there actually might be something that I could use from what that person said. So that's probably off course, but just in the sense of being very clear on what you do and why you do it, and at the same time balancing that with listening.
But I think that was the takeaway there that I had. There was a great hint on how to find those beta readers. Finding those people that leave you the 3-star reviews, but they're constructive with the feedback they give you and it resonates with you. It's the great way to find those beta readers.
Absolutely. And then, there's somebody who I call my alpha reader, Joanna, and she has always loved my books. But at the same time, I see how constructive she is with other authors, and I see how constructive she is even with. I asked her to be a beta reader for me, and she and I go at it. But I call her my safety blanket, because she'll say, okay, Kennedy, you need to do, I see this and this, and she's British, so sometimes I slip into her accent. I see that you need to do this and this, and I'm like, no, I don't. And then I think about it like in the shower, and I'm like, dang nabbit, Joanna's right, and we go back and forth. Beta readers I don't want yes men for beta readers. I don't want people who say, oh my God, I want people who are going to challenge me, who are going to have my best interest at heart, because Joanna is really, really hard on me. And I know a lot of writers who could not work with her, because she is like, she goes in and it's surgical and she's precise and thorough. But at the same time, I know that she loves my books and that she would not let put something out that she didn't feel was up to the standard that she's seen for my other work. You need people like that who you have relationship with. They're not out to hurt you. They don't have their own interests that they're promoting, or they just want to hear themselves tear into you. I have a circle of people like that, and I'm very, very fortunate, and I listen to them. And I don't I don't have feelings about my books. Like I do, obviously, but when we're in that of like editing, I set those feelings aside, because I am here to serve this story. And whatever is best for this story, it is usually something I am very passionate and convicted about. That is more important than how I feel about how I communicated it in the first phases of it. What's most important to me is how this story is going to impact other people. And when I have a constructive beta reader who says, okay, this might hurt, but this is what I see, they are also serving that story. They are protecting me and they're protecting that story. And so I'm very fortunate to have a circle of people who protect me that way.
Well, thank you for all of that. We're at an hour. That went so quickly. I appreciated all of the information that you gave us. It was really wonderful, in-depth information on how to move when life throws you those lemons. You were able to pivot and create a positive solution. So thank you so much for sharing all that personal information with us. For those of you who joined us, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Thank you so much, Kennedy.
Thank you for having me. Thanks everybody for being here. This was awesome. Thank you, Trisha.
All right. Happy publishing, everyone.